Well, Bernard, thank you very, very much. Thank you for your introduction. Thank you for, most importantly, your extraordinary leadership on this. Bernie has been, get settled here, guys. Bernie has really been just unbelievable in his commitment to trying to help make something happen with respect to infrastructure, and he's put enormous personal resources on the line, helped to bring people to the table, and together with Steve Clemons, they have been doing the best of what this country and this city needs right now, which is actually thinking, a little bit of thought. And it's sort of stunning to me that we are where we are, but we are. I last night was privileged to honor Ted Stevens for his work on fisheries and oceans, which I had also been deeply involved in over the years. I used to be chairman of the Ocean Subcommittee. Ted Stevens and I rewrote the America's Fisheries Laws, Magnuson Act. This is complete diversion, but it has a point. And he and Danny Inouye on the Defense Appropriations Act were enormous partners through the years. Whether one was chairman or one was ranking absolutely didn't matter. They treated each other with the same respect and worked in the same way, and as a result, got an enormous amount done, including their support for oceans research, science, some of the things that we needed to do. But there was a huge partnership there. That's what we need here in this city right now. That's what we need in this country in order to get our country back on track. And that is why this infrastructure conference is so important. I'm grateful to the Atlantic for sponsoring it and for all of you for caring enough to come and sort of think about this and begin to apply ourselves in a way that can really help us address multiple problems. The approach that we are talking about with respect to infrastructure is not a pie in the sky, off the wall, hastily thrown together concept. Some of us, Rosa DeLero is here in the House, she's been a leader on this, working on it for a number of years. Chris Dodd, when he was here, was working on it over the Senate with a bunch of us. It's been through a number of iterations. And what we have settled on in the Senate now is really a very different approach from anything that we've had previously. I happen to think, because we have really worked on it about as hard as I've worked on anything here, with a diligent staff who've spent an enormous amount of time traveling to England, sitting with folks there, talking to them, to Luxembourg, elsewhere, Europe, looking at the European Infrastructure Bank, looking at what's happening in China, really evaluating it and measuring it against our current politics, where obviously the mood and willingness to try to create something with a federal charter that resembles Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac is going to be non-existent. And so dispel yourselves immediately of any notion that this has any resemblance to those. It is not for profit, they are for profit. It does not issue stock, they issue stock. It is fully independent from the federal government, they are not so fully independent, and from politics. So there are huge distinctions that we have drawn on specifically to preempt the potential opposition that might exist to doing something with respect to this. Now, I really get passionate about this. I get genuinely excited because it matters so much to us. Infrastructure is not a luxury. Infrastructure is not something you do because you have extra money lying around or because you want to create a work program or a jobs program. Infrastructure is the core of your economy, around which the ability of people to get to work, to get home, to be productive, around which the capacity to move goods from place of manufacture to the marketplace, whether it's a marketplace domestically or a marketplace abroad. Your ability to do that is enhanced as a consequence of your infrastructure. Over this past weekend, I was in London to meet with officials with respect to Afghanistan, military officials, political officials, as we think about where we're heading there. I then had been invited to go to Normandy to speak at the D-Day commemoration exercises. And I had the pleasure of getting on a train in downtown, midtown London, and 2 hours later getting off a train in downtown, midtown Paris, from center to center in 2 hours and 15 minutes, with my cell phone plugged in, my computer plugged in, capacity to talk to people, get work done, eat a meal, and not go through half the trouble that it takes to get to an airport, wait to take off, be delayed on the tarmac, have weather problems, ultimately get where you're going, and then face a taxi ride or whatever to try to get to where you're going for another 45 minutes to an hour. And this is a train that doesn't go remotely as fast as the TGV or the bullet train or China's new trains, which are the future. But not the future for the United States, folks, on the road we're on, the path we're on. Hardly a road. The fact is that we're stuck. We're in a strange place. And we have to break out of this place because it matters for our ability to compete. It matters for the quality of life in our country. It matters for the type of lifestyle people will live. And it matters for our ability to be able to grow our economy and provide people the kind of strength we want in the future. And I'll tell you this, as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, it matters for our ability to be able to have credibility in talking with leaders in other parts of the world who look at the United States and wonder whether we have the ability or the commitment and the steadfastness and purpose of doing anything. We can't even get a budget. And they look at us and say, you tell us you're going to do this? They doubt us. There's a real doubt about the United States right now. Believe it or not, this infrastructure bank that I am proposing is related to this notion of how you address the concerns people have about all those kinds of things that I just talked about. Now, why is it important? Well, folks, we have gone from first in the world to 23rd in the world. 23rd, we are now ranked, according to the World Economic Forum, in the quality of our infrastructure. Ports, roads, harbors, bridges, tunnels, airports, trains, all of the components of the things that move people, goods, and products and define the infrastructure of our country. If you talk to the main cadre of engineers, architects, experts who work for states and federal government who are responsible for keeping our infrastructure at par, they will tell you, without regard to political label, that the United States has a $2.2 trillion deficit in infrastructure. It would take $250 billion a year, each year, for the next 40 years, just to bring our roads infrastructure up to par. That's without even addressing airports and other qualities. Now, most of you in this room and many of you listening have traveled perhaps profusely, I don't know. But I'll tell you, it's depressing to me to travel today and get out at an airport in another country and sort of look around you at the architecture, at the cleanliness, at the signage, at the capacity to move easily from ramp to public transportation, at the ability to be able to actually get your luggage. I mean, you get out at our airports, and if you're a foreign traveler and you haven't yet gotten American currency, you have no prayer of getting a cart to take your baggage from where you are to out, because the money exchanges are all on the other side of the customs, and the carts all have to be paid for. And so, I mean, we aren't connecting any of the dots for how you make things work for people. That's a minor example. I rode on the high-speed rail from Beijing to Tianjin the other day. 29-minute trip that used to take about 8 to 10 hours. A 29-minute trip. And when I got in, they put me up in the engineer's car, a beautiful little, seat, a table, they fold the table down. Guy puts a glass of water in front of me on the table, and I get very nervous. I'm used to riding Amtrak. I say, no, take that away. I don't want that in my lap. The guy said, no, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. I swear to God, folks, we're going 200 miles an hour leaving all of the traffic in the dust, and the water is barely moving in the glass. Now, we're fighting to just keep Amtrak alive. Amtrak, the Acela, which is a train that has the ability to go 150 miles an hour, and guess what? You know how many miles of the trip from Washington to New York it goes 50 miles an hour? 18 miles of the whole trip. Why? Because if it goes too fast under the Baltimore Tunnel, the vibrations may cave in the tunnel, and we don't have sufficient capacity for the tunnel. Because if you go too fast over the bridges over the Chesapeake, they're not reinforced for that kind of speed, and the train will wind up in the Chesapeake. This is the United States of America. I mean, we're the country that did go to the moon. We're the country that invented solar technology, invented wind technology, and we're behind in all of them. We don't have one country in the top 10 in the world today because we don't invest, because we're not smart about thinking about the future. We're living off our parents' and our grandparents' investments in the infrastructure of our country. Brooklyn Bridge, MBTA in Boston, interstate highway system, Eisenhower. Tell me, where are the great infrastructure projects of our generation? What have we built for the future? And of course, we're really so lacking in sort of vision that we don't even have a capital budget in the United States of America, so it's all current accounts. We pay for it as we go. So the current generation has to sit down and pay for infrastructure that's going to be used 100 years from now. But it's all against the current budget, rather than a real capital budget like most companies in the world who do capital expansion, particularly when they can be revenue producing. Now, here are the stark facts. China is investing 9% of its GDP into infrastructure today. Europe is investing 5% of its GDP into infrastructure today. Over the last 3 years, they put about $350 billion into infrastructure. Brazil put about $240 billion over the last 3 years alone. And the United States is piddling amounts of money that come through, FIFIA or water or ICE-T or one of these programs or another, but it's minor. We're even running out of money in the Transportation Trust Fund, in the Highway Trust Fund. So what are we going to do, folks? Are we going to sit here and tell the American people that we are incapable of planning and thinking ahead and being visionaries who put together a program to be able to build America? Are we just going to decline and walk away? I hope not. I pray we're not. Now, in this current budget mood, with this particular Congress, we're not going to see big appropriations to build in America. You know it. We're just not going to see big appropriations. The Appropriations Committee is struggling right now. No earmarks, no this, no that, which incidentally is one of the dumbest things I ever heard of in my life. I think Americans are not objecting to an earmark that goes through a committee that's been properly vetted, that people have had hearings on, that is voted on, that then goes to the floor and is properly decided on. That's the job of Congress. What they object to are midnight deals where pet projects that never saw the light of day and never were vetted and never were voted on are shoved in at the last minute. But typically overreact, throw the baby out with the bathwater. The result is our ability to target bridges, our ability to do specific projects has now been stripped away from us, at least for this year, till people come to their senses, I hope. So how are we going to build America? Every day, yesterday, you heard Bernanke. Fragile recovery, not creating enough jobs. What are we going to do? Sit on our hands? Every $1 billion you put into infrastructure is 18,000 jobs. You want to build America? You actually put people to work. You not only put people to work, you put people to work in jobs that stay here, and you can structure this in a way that you guarantee that you're building out America's manufacturing base and America's economy at the same time, by making sure you buy certain kinds of American products and so forth. I believe that this concept of the bank is a thing that's ripe. And I want to ask every one of you, in whatever your channel of communication is that brings you here today, to enlist in this effort to get this done this year. Now, what is it? It is a bank Unlike the administration's proposal, which goes to the Department of Transportation, scores at $30 billion, has about $15 billion worth of grants. Now, grants are fine. I've usually supported them. But I don't think we're going to pass grants in this particular Congress. So we don't have grants in our proposal. We just have loans. And we have loans that are based on an absolute normal marketplace set of standards by an independent entity. We are not setting up a government entity. It's an independent bank that will have appointed directors, all of whom must be confirmed by the Senate based on their professional background and capacity to be able to live up to the highest standards of fiduciary responsibility and of infrastructure investment loans. Now, the loans are for three categories. There's a recent proposal that a couple of my colleagues put in. It only is for transportation. It only goes to through the Transportation Department. We don't want it to be within a department, I think. We want it outside of the politics. We want it to be independent. We want it to be inscrutable with respect to the standards that are applied to it. And the way to do that is through the independent entity, which is what we judged based on what was happening in Europe and elsewhere works best. We also then leverage private investment. Our lending goes to three categories: transportation, energy, and water. Those projects would be $100 million or more, except for rural, where we have a 5% set aside for the rural communities with a specific rural assistance ability, because some rural communities may not be that practiced and versed in how they apply or put together the kind of deal. But they would then apply for a revenue-producing loan, i.e. a project where there's a toll, there's cost to electricity, therefore people are paying something, and there's a revenue stream. And our project, our bill scores at only $10 billion. We've worked very closely with CBO. It's structured so we kept it as inexpensive as possible, as little outlay as necessary. That outlay translates into anywhere from $340 to $640 billion of leveraged investment into American infrastructure through pension funds, sovereign funds, bond state funds, et cetera, that have the ability. Anybody can apply, individual, corporation, state, joint venture, and so forth, but because they have to meet the standards of the deal. And the deal is one that pays back to the American taxpayer. In the end, this would work not unlike the Export-Import Bank, which since 1991 has been making a profit. It makes a profit. And we expect this infrastructure bank to actually make money, be self-sustaining over time, though it's not profit-making. So that money would go back out into leveraging more lending and leveraging more building. Now, money, as everybody here knows, is fungible. If we don't do this, folks, those pension funds and those sovereign funds are not going to sit on the sidelines and say, gee, the United States isn't letting us do something with our money, so we won't do anything. They're going to go look for the greatest return, safest return, or fastest return, or some combination of the three on investment. And they're going to find it in Brazil, in India, in China, in Korea, in Mexico, in a lot of other places. So this is the time for the United States of America to kind of get going, to wake up and recognize that this is the way we can really change the economy of our country, change the direction of our country, improve the quality of life for people, put America back on track to developing those trains that can go faster, the technologies we could sell to other countries. Right now, we'll have to go to Germany and Japan and China and other places to get a lot of this technology. That's kind of sad. But if we get into the game hard enough and fast enough, maybe we can get back into it and be the people producing these kinds of things. You have to invest. So anybody will tell you that. You have to invest to make money. And we have to invest to make our future. So I believe that this is a self-sustaining entity that allows the U.S. government to do more with less. It is, in the final analysis, the only way the United States of America is going to get into the business of rebuilding ourselves. We did the Big Dig project up in Boston. Great project. Tip O'Neill, Ted Kennedy, myself worked on it hard, 1990s. You've got a project out here trying to connect out to Dulles with a rail system. I noticed Virginia and some of the local communities trying to pull back from that because they don't have the money and they don't want to commit to it. We have governors giving back money. We're very happy in Massachusetts because we got an extra $795 million for the Northeast, thanks to the lack of vision in the governor of Florida, and thanks to the lack of vision in the governor of New Jersey and the governor of Ohio, who can't see the value of this kind of long-term investment. So we will benefit, and our people will benefit, and the country will benefit as a result of that. But we can do this cheaper, we can do this faster, we can do this more effectively if we create this independent entity of the Infrastructure Bank. And I ask all of you to do as much as you can to try to help support it and make it happen this year. This is the best way to get our economy moving again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Time for one question from me. Senator Kerry, thank you very much. I was telling Senator Kerry's staff that he might do a double take when he saw me this morning, because I'm usually dealing with him on foreign policy and national security issues. But since he straddles both the Senate Finance Committee and, of course, is chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I want to pose one question before he has to go. I read every word of the President's national security strategy, and the real takeaway from the National Security Strategy report was how much of that report was focused on the need to get the U.S. economy moving. It was a remarkable report in that sense, and I think really broke with many other reports. Admiral Mike Mullen and the think tank that he has around there is focused on, as well, the U.S. economy. They keep it kind of quiet because they don't want to look like they're taking over everything from the Pentagon. But I do want to basically raise the question of, do you feel that there's a national security dimension to the presentation and support you've given the Infrastructure Bank?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I didn't want to divert too far in this conversation, so I'm enormously appreciative for the question. But our ability to do what we need to do I'll give you an example. A quarter of the Arab world lives in Egypt. The Arab Spring and the future of Egypt is very much up for grabs. Nothing is certain. What I know is certain. I was there a few weeks ago and spent 2 days in Cairo and did a town meeting and other things with people. I came away just laser beam focused on the notion that the only way to deal with Egypt right now is economic. Really, we ought to be doing a Marshall Plan for Jordan, Tunisia, for Egypt, etc. And we need to be doing more with respect to Pakistan, which is where most of the problem is coming that is affecting Afghanistan. And yet we're putting $120 billion into Afghanistan and only $2.8 billion into Pakistan. It doesn't make sense. But right now, if you went to the Appropriations Committee of either the House or Senate, their mood is not to put any money into these things. So everything is related to our economy. If we don't get our economy moving, folks, we will simply not have the wherewithal, the credibility, to be able to sustain the projection of values, principles, interests that we try to project with respect to our foreign policy. And so our national security is affected by that. If these rising powers like China and or others view us as getting weaker, not stronger, I guarantee you there'll be conflict somewhere. There'll be a reach, a grab for the South China Sea islands, for oil, for other kinds of things as the demand for resources increases, and our ability to protect our interests, not even just to leverage or to project, but to protect our interests, is diminished. So getting our economy moving again is critical. And right now, I worry that we've got some folks around here who just don't connect the dots. If we just go through rapacious cutting and eat America's seed corn in the process. And I mean by that, don't do infrastructure, reduce our commitment to science and technology and our research and development, reduce our commitment to education particularly. If we diminish our ability to compete rather than grow it, I'll give you an example. We're now 12th in the world. We've slipped from first and second again to 12th in the numbers of kids, 25 to 30 kids, number of people, 25 to 35 who graduate from college. 12th. That is going in exactly the wrong direction with respect to what we need to do to compete and keep our economy strong in an information-based, technology-based, high-value-added, job-based economic competitive struggle. And so doing all of these things is critical. Linked to infrastructure, the single most important thing we should do, and we frankly should have done 2 years ago, is energy. If we will unleash, America's entrepreneurial and creative skill into the energy market, we're looking at a $6 trillion market with 6 billion potential users today going up to about 10 billion, we read, in the next 40 years. The technology market that created the boom of the 1990s, which made everybody in America see their income go up, every single quintile saw income go up, that was a $1 trillion market with 1 billion users. So here we are, staring in the face of infrastructure, energy, these huge economic opportunities for our country, which create jobs that have to stay here. You build a plant here that provides electricity here, the jobs stay here. And we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We missed this enormous opportunity last year on climate energy, basically because a bunch of great big coal companies that have fully depreciated and fully paid for their plants, and they are now cash cows, and they're sitting there reaping in the benefits while they pollute the atmosphere and kill the oceans and so forth. That's why we lost it. It's why we're not doing this, folks. It's because, Washington is stuck with too much money chasing politicians and too few places for Americans to feel that they have an opportunity to have their agenda addressed. Now, I know this is far-reaching and outside the vein, but believe me, it is related to why we don't do these things. It's because this place is managed and run, and the agenda is set by very wealthy, targeted interests that have the ability to control what happens here, and we don't get a lot of things done that ought to be happening. Or, not always that, or people just don't choose to impact it, like Bernie is impacting it. He's having an impact. He's choosing to put this vision on the line and try to make these things happen. Frankly, there's a hell of a lot more money to be made in the doing of those things than in just marrying the status quo. And that's what I hope we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you for your candor, Senator Kerry, and your leadership, and also for this great room. Thanks for your staff's leadership and support as well of this Atlantic Forum.